What's up guys, James here from ShockerRacing, and today we are working on upgrading the brakes on the Jeep Wrangler 392. We've got a big brake set up from APB brakes that are much bigger diameter, much better stopping power than the little dinky rotors and calipers that came on the 392 stock. And with all this extra power, it needs all the stopping power it can get. So we're gonna be working on swapping those out today. But first, we need to try to get a baseline to see how much better the braking power is once we switch over to the APB brakes. Now, I don't have a runway, I don't have a back road that I could do this on. So I'm gonna use some private property I have here. This is storage facility. I'm just gonna use this aisle here. I'm gonna do a blast down the aisle. I'm gonna try to hit the brakes at the same point. Now, obviously I gotta do it now before I switch to the APB brakes. So gonna try to get a baseline idea of how long it takes. Yes, I'm not gonna be able to get up to 60 or even probably 50 miles an hour before I hit the brakes. But I'm gonna try to do apples to apples, and we'll see how much of a difference it actually makes in just a short distance. So stay tuned, we're gonna try to do our best we can here to film this and do apples to apples. All right, so that was my first time trying to pull down the aisle here. What I did was, there's a doorway here. I tried to hit the brakes right at that door, and it took me all this distance to stop here. So hopefully the APB brakes will be much better than that. I'm gonna take a measurement here, and we're gonna try to mark it off so that we can try and recreate this after we get the brakes swapped. So, but we're gonna mark it and take a measurement here. All right, so I got my wonderful, beautiful assistant here. We did 2 pulls down the aisle here. I don't think I want to do a third because these stock brakes are a bit sketchy. Yeah. It definitely was skirting and screeching, trying to stop. Sorry about the lawnmower in the background. Hopefully it's not too noisy. But basically, on run number 1, from my same stopping point, it took me 59 feet to come to a full stop. I think I launched it a little harder on my second pull, and it took me 65 feet to stop the second time. So what's the average of 65 and 59?
Yeah, probably like 63 or
62, 63.
62 and a half, 62.75.
Sure, feet. Anyways, so we're gonna call that 62, 63 feet to stop. Again, this is by no means scientific. No. We're just trying to get an idea.
Just 2 people having fun.
Yeah.
Measuring start stops.
Exactly, exactly. So hopefully we'll get these APB brakes on tonight. My buddy Will's coming by. We'll get these installed, and we will try and retest this most likely tomorrow. So stay tuned for the results of that, and we'll show you the install and all that stuff with Will tonight. So, and then we'll get to the results tomorrow. So today is officially brake day for the 392. I'm gonna be installing these APB oversized, enlarged brakes for the front of the 392 Wrangler here. They come with these giant 4-piston calipers that look pretty awesome in this bright red powder coating with their logo on it. It also includes some massive rotors. I believe they are 14-inch rotors that look killer. They're all black and look awesome, slotted rotors. So we're gonna get these installed. My buddy Will is on his way over here to help me, because honestly, I've done a lot of things on vehicles, not just Jeeps. I've done a lot of brake jobs, but I've actually never replaced a caliper myself. So I figured I would call in somebody who knows what they're doing, knows better than I do. I've said this before on this channel, I never claim to be a professional or know everything about everything. I'm out here learning just like all of you are, doing my research, trying to, you know, learn as much as I can about my vehicles and do as much of the work as I can myself, or calling in my friends. So my buddy Will Sif is on his way to help me out. So as soon as he gets here, we're gonna jump in on these and get going. Hopefully get these brakes upgraded tonight, and then get it back to do my test and hopefully make a huge improvement in the stopping power of the Wrangler 392. Okay, so we have removed the caliper already. That was just two 21 millimeter bolts on the back side. Once that was off, we popped the brake pads out. We put those off to the side. To get the rotor off, you do need to remove this one. It's a T30 screw. Once you remove that, the rotor will pop right off. And then we are on to taking apart the caliper. So now Will is just disconnecting the brake line from the caliper, which is a 15, he said 15 millimeter, right?
Yep. Have your bucket ready.
Yep, because it will start to leak brake fluid. Setup actually works pretty nice with the crate there, like that.
It'll drip through, ideally. Okay, so there's two washers, one on either side of this banjo bolt, and you want to retain both of them. So you can see the first washer fell into the bucket, goes on this side, and on this side there's a washer as well. Okay, on the outside, I got you. So it'll go like this, right?
Yep.
All right. That means that will go like that. And our washer. I'm trying to get paint.
So right in the center of the back side of the caliper, there was the hole right for the same brake line to go right into it. And we're just reusing the same bolts and washers. So those little retaining pins.
Yeah, they were pushed into the pin like that.
Okay.
They just pop out real easy. And these pins slide.
Just one on each?
Correct.
Okay.
And these pins slide up. Bottom pad.
So you just kind of slide into place there?
Yep. Okay, and pop your pin back in. That side. Okay. And then we're ready to add the rotor.
Okay, so once you put the new rotor back on, make sure you put the T30 torque screw back in the rotor so that it holds it on, and then it's time to start mounting up the caliper brackets. So once you put the rotor on, the next thing is to install this bracket, which is going to allow this bracket's going to allow the new caliper to mount to the mounting position. Let me show you this other bracket. This is the bracket for the other side, and these are left and right, so you got to make sure you got the right side on. It slides in behind this bracket, right?
Yeah.
And the bolt is going to come through. It's going to slide through the hub here and then into the bracket, which is threaded. So it's going to thread through. And if you kind of pay attention, it's real tight to the rotor here, but similar clearance to the heat shield back here too, or the dust shield. So that's going to work out. And then it's basically going to allow you to put the bolts through the caliper and mount it up to this new bracket. So the bolts that mount the caliper to that bracket are a 10 millimeter Allen, and so you may want to get yourself one that's on actually like a socket. Okay, so just make sure, because the rotor is directional and that is labeled on the inside of the rotor. Nope, Kim just started Mojito. But just make sure that you put the rotor on the correct side, that is directional, and the bracket for the caliper bracket is got to be on the specific side, so make sure you use the correct one for that, and then obviously torque down all your bolts properly to spec. Okay, so I wanted to show the size comparison in the rotor, which is clear, obvious, easy to see, and then the difference in the new caliper, which is a 4-piston caliper compared to the 2-piston caliper that comes standard on the 392. So just wanted to show the difference here. All right, so here's the second caliper all mounted up. Make sure you pay attention to which direction the rotor is going. And then once you get the caliper mounted up, you've got this kind of compresses or spring loads the brake pads in. You slide the pins through and this kind of holds it in place, so don't forget that bracket. So the last step, once everything is installed, mounted up, torqued properly, is to go ahead and bleed it. You're gonna wanna open up the bleeder, which is a 10 millimeter. So you go ahead and open that up and do your bleeding process, and make sure you get any lines, any air out of the lines, and fill these calipers up with some fresh brake fluid. And obviously make sure you don't let any air get into the system here, so make sure you keep this topped off as you're bleeding. Okay, so in a very unscientific, by no means like 100% apples to apples, the comparison with a couple of pulls, you can see here, this was the worst braking with the stock brakes was at 65 feet. Then we had 59 feet was the better of the two runs with the stock brakes. And then these were the two stopping with the new APB brakes. One measured at 52 feet and one at 54 feet. So we're gonna call that an average of, 53 feet. So if you average it out, it took about 9-10 feet off in just this very short distance. Down this aisle here in the storage facility, which again is my own closed private property. So considering this is a pretty short distance to take 9-10 feet off, imagine if you're on a highway doing 70-75 miles an hour and need to stop. I think it definitely makes a difference. One thing I can say is the pedal feel is a lot better. And the other thing I should mention is that APB brakes did tell me that after 500 miles of break-in bedding the brakes, I will get even better stopping power. Now, I've only got about 150 miles of bedding. I'm driving, trying to get some miles on, just driving the brakes. I didn't have time to wait for 500 miles. I figured I'd give it a shot, see if it's any better, and it definitely was. So I definitely think this made a huge improvement over the stock feel, especially with the amount of power on the 392. Definitely check out our friends over at APB Brakes and check out their options for brake kits for the 392 as well as your regular JLs and Gladiators. All right, so that is gonna wrap up our APB brakes video for the Wrangler 392. It definitely seems to have made a difference in the stopping power and the overall pedal feel, and kind of excited to see how it gets better as we put some more miles on them and get them fully broken in. So I'll make sure I update that in a later video once we get the more miles on it, but so stay tuned for that in a future video. If you have any questions, make sure you drop the comments, drop your questions in the comments below. And as always, make sure you give us a big thumbs up or a big like, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.